Hello children and welcome to the session today. Children, till now in the chapters that we've studied, we were talking about different substances. Now most of these substances that we've been talking about were non-living. Today we are going to take into account the living beings. We are going to understand what changes do the living beings undergo. We are going to understand in chapter number 7, living and non-living things. What are the things that differentiate them? What are the common characteristics? What are the characteristic features only of living things? And what is the concept of species? Now, all the things that we see around us are grouped into living and non-living things. But living things are those that perform the major life processes of respiration. They grow, they reproduce or they multiply, they eat food, they digest food, they give out waste products. So these are the characteristics of living beings. Now children, there are things that just grow. For example, if you soak maybe chickpeas overnight, they are going to absorb water and they are going to grow in size. But will you call that a living thing, a criteria of living thing? No, because it only fulfills one criteria here, not the others. So all those things that fulfill all these criteria will be known as a living thing. Common characteristics of living and non-living things. So first, living and non-living things both have mass and occupy space, and both are made up of molecules. But in living things, the tiniest structure or the tiniest unit is known as a cell. So the processes that we were talking about, respiration, nutrition, reproduction, and growth, all these processes take place inside the cell. This is the first difference between living and non-living thing. What are the other differences? The other differences include the various characteristics of living things. Now let us take the first example of this characteristics, which is movement. Movement, as we all know, plants move towards, the stem moves towards the sun, the root moves towards gravity. We also know that all the different types of animals also move. Even if we take the example of unicellular organisms like amoeba, how does amoeba move? Amoeba moves with the help of pseudopodia, which is false foot. Paramecium moves with the help of hair around its body, which are known as cilia. So all unicellular organisms also show some kind of movement. Body organization. Now whether it is a multicellular organism or it is a unicellular organism, what is happening here? There is body organization. What does body organization basically means? It means that the smallest unit of the body is cell. Many cells together form tissues. Many tissues together form organs. Organs together form the organ system. An organ system forms the organism. In unicellular organism, all these functions of living beings are done within one single cell. Then growth. We also know that growth is inherent to all living beings, whether it is a plant or it is an animal or it is human beings. All grow, yes, and all have a definite life. After that certain period of life, all living organisms die. Next is nutrition. Now, nutrition is a very interesting concept which we have learned many a times over the last few years. We know that there are autotrophs and we know that there are heterotrophs. So, what are autotrophs? Autotrophs are those that can make their own food. Heterotrophs depend on other sources for food. Plants are the only autotrophs on earth, and depending on the eating habits, the heterotrophs can be divided into different categories. How? Let us understand. Green plants make their own food by the process of photosynthesis, using carbon dioxide from the air, water, and minerals from the soil, and trapping the sun's energy by chlorophyll. The food produced by the plant is in the form of a sugar called glucose, and oxygen is given out through the stomata. So now we know about all the different categories of heterotrophs. Let us now come to the next important life process, excretion. So we also know that all living organisms who are eating food are also producing waste products. The elimination of these waste products is known as excretion. Then is respiration. Children, there is a basic difference between breathing and respiration, which we will understand in higher classes. But for now, we need to understand that what is breathing? Breathing is simply in and out of gases. So talking about the human body or animals, which gas goes inside? Oxygen. Which gas comes outside? Carbon dioxide. And what is respiration? Respiration is when you use this oxygen to burn the food that you are eating to give out energy. Let us understand the process of breathing in detail. We breathe in air through two holes in air nose called nostrils. The air passes through the nasal cavity in the nose to the windpipe or trachea. The trachea divides into two tubes called bronchi, which enter the lungs. The bronchi divide into smaller tubes called bronchioles in the lungs. Tiny air sacs called alveoli are present at the end of each bronchiole. The walls of the alveoli are very thin and are surrounded by blood capillaries. The air enters the alveoli from the trachea to bronchus and bronchioles. The oxygen of the air diffuses into the blood through the thin walls of the alveoli. The oxygen combines with the hemoglobin in the blood to form oxyhemoglobin and is carried to all cells of the body. The carbon dioxide produced as an end product of respiration enters the blood and is carried to the alveoli in the lungs. The carbon dioxide is removed with the air we breathe out from the lungs. The next important life process is reproduction. All living beings give birth to their next generation. Why is it important? If a living being is not going to reproduce, then the species is going to die at them only. So we know that plants produce seeds, birds produce eggs, different animals produce their young ones. Even tiny unicellular organisms like amoeba, what do? The single cell separates into two. What is this called? This is called the daughter cell and this is called the parent cell. So even unicellular organisms like amoeba divide into two, giving rise to a new baby, you can say, or a new cell. The next is response to stimulus. So any change in the environment that is taking place will be categorized as stimulus. And the ability of an organism to feel a stimulus is known as irritability. So children, to understand the concept of species, we need to understand that each set of organisms have their own characteristic. If we take the example of a hen that is given here, we know that the characteristics of hen remain that of hen only. There will be only one species called hen. Now, it is important to remember that they can interbreed among themselves when they belong to the same species. They do not differ in body organization and they have similar feeding habits. So, in this chapter, you have learned about the different classification of functions that take place inside the living body and how this differentiates living from the non-living. You've also understood the concept of species. So, I hope you're ready to attempt the questions at the back. Thank you.